Hi guys! Jackie is here with another video. As you may or may not know, I am a fictophile. Specifically, I am fictoromantic. Well, the topic of today's video is explaining fictophilia and debunking common myths regarding it. You may think that the harassment I endured only happened at school, but you'd be wrong. I and a lot of my fellow fictophile friends got harassed as well. For example, my friend Chokamint got bullied, triggered, and even doxed by a group of fictophobes. For those unaware, fictophobia is a word that describes fear, bias, aversion to, or even discrimination against fictophiles. A common example of fictophobia is believing fictophilia is on par with delusion. Fictophilia is not synonymous with any kind of delusion. Every fictophile I've met, including myself, is fully well aware that our crushes aren't real. Don't get me wrong, I wish that my crushes were real, but they aren't. Anyways, for most people, fictophilia is something you're born with. However, trauma can make someone's fictophilia more intense, especially if the trauma was caused by a flesh and blood human. Not to mention that my friend Melon has been abused for her fictoromantic tendencies by her own family. For example, her dad lashes out at her about her fictional crushes and goes off on rants about how she's not rooted in reality. Seriously, just because Melon has a big imagination doesn't mean she's crazy. Also, speaking of Melon, it's not just her dad that's being fictophobic to her. People on Reddit are, too. Specifically, people of the All House subreddit are trying to shame Melon for having a crush on King Clawthorne. In fact, some of them even say dumb shit like King is only 8 years old. Okay, I can see where you are coming from, and to an extent it does make sense. Ida said in an episode that she found King 8 years ago. However, she doesn't explicitly say that King is 8 years old. In fact, King was most likely around 5 years old if I had to estimate, since King looked a lot different as a baby compared to when Ida found him, which means that King had to have aged at least a couple of years, since if I recall correctly, by the time Ida adopted King, King was already speaking in full sentences. So yeah, to the people on Reddit, stop assuming stuff just so y'all can have some lame excuse to attack Melon for something she can't control. Okay, now to debunk common misconceptions people have about me as a fictophile. The first one is people claiming that I goon to my crushes. This one is really weird, because not only am I a minor, but I'm also sex-repulsed asexual, so it's really creepy to assume that I would ever do that kind of stuff with my crushes. Like, what the fuck? I only love my crushes romantically. I don't want to have sex with any of them. I don't even feel horny thinking about them. That would be really weird. And not in a good way, because I'm too young to consent. Plus, almost all of my crushes are either adults like Simon Petrikov or immortal like Baconman and Tack. I do have fantasies about my crushes, but they're only romantic stuff like cuddling and kissing. For example, whenever I have romantic fantasies about Charlie Dumpler, I imagine him as a prince and myself as a princess. I also imagine him spoiling me by buying me a bunch of food. So to anybody trying to spread lies about me jacking off to my crushes, you're lying out your ass. Like I said, I'm sex-repulsed and don't feel sexual arousal at all. I only ever feel horny during hypersexual episodes, but those were caused by severe trauma, and I rarely, if ever, have hypersexual episodes. Another common myth is that fictophiles are desperate, lonely, or losers. Just like the previous myth, this one is extremely harmful, as it implies that being a fictophile is a choice when it isn't. In my case, I was born with my orientation, but my trauma made it worse. My orientation is sorta complicated, but to sum it up simply, I mostly feel attraction to cartoon men and flesh and blood women or feminine-leaning envies. While I have had boyfriends in the past, I never truly felt connected to them. I only really have feelings for fictional men and occasionally fictional women. My girlfriend, Lele, is probably the best partner I've had. She's so sweet, and I genuinely feel attraction to her unlike my past boyfriends. Another myth is that fictophiles are attracted to any fictional character they happen to like. Again, not true at all. I have many platonic faves that I'm not attracted to, most notably Dib Membrane, Louise Belcher, and Eddie from Pororo. I don't feel attraction to them for a plethora of reasons, mainly because they are clearly underage. In fact, I actually see Dib and Eddie as my adoptive sons while I see Louise as a goddaughter. I'm so tired of all the stigma regarding us fictophiles and fictophilia in general. I didn't ask to be born fictoromantic, but there's nothing I can do to change it. Telling people who are fictophiles to get therapy for their orientation is not okay, as multiple studies have shown that conversion therapy does not work. In fact, I'd say fictophobia is on par with homophobia and transphobia. But yeah, I guess I'll wrap this video up. Let me know if y'all want a part 2, and I'll see you in the next video.